Donald Trump Jr. is in massive legal trouble, and this is on top of the defamation suit we talked about a couple days ago, because it's quickly becoming clear that he might be the first and major focal point when it comes to the January 6th committee, at least among the Trump family. As you might recall, the phone records are being taken from the entire Trump family, including the kids, everyone except for Tiffany. They're all getting seized. But as noted by one CNN piece, a former Republican congresswoman thinks, and I think she knows correctly, that Trump Jr. has to be focal point number one.
I don't think we've still gotten to the bottom of it, because I think a lot of the people who need to be held responsible, people at the White House who may very well, as information comes out, have been involved in this rally and egging on this kind of activity. And that's why I think it's so important that we get these phone records, that we get these text records of people there who are engaged in that activity and in the days before and the days following. And I think
Kevin
this is going to be a very
records,
important.
Congresswoman? Sorry to interrupt.
Well, I think anybody's. One of the first people I'd focus on are people like Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, people at the White House, people who were conducting the rally. So I think where those lead you. But I do think, as Paul knows, I subpoenaed a lot of phone records and a lot of email records in my day of the Clinton administration. Congress has an absolute right to subpoena those records, and I think what they have done is exactly appropriate.
Listen to that. That is very telling, that when she talks about how the records must be subpoenaed, they must be examined by the January 6th committee, she's asked who should be the first focal point. And, Acosta, the CNN anchor, tries to steer her towards Kevin McCarthy, and she's like, no, it's gotta be Trump Jr. Look at the order. Not Trump first, Trump Jr., then Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, focusing on the White House. It is extremely telling that a high-ranking American official who knows the deal put Trump Jr. first on that list. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because Trump Jr. played a foundational role at the January 6th rally. He spoke at the event, keynote speakers there along with his dad, his brother, Rudy Giuliani, a couple Congress people. So obviously he was front and center on that stage. But in addition, he is a key cog in Trump's link to many of the groups that participated on January 6th. That Donald Trump is linked to a lot of these groups via Trump Jr. because he's connected to the internet right wing. And the internet right wing showed up in real big numbers on that day. And it was almost certainly the case that Trump Jr. was helping to play this connective role between the formal Trump administration and all of these disparate groups that don't necessarily share direct connections to Trump, but support him and supported his attack on democracy. And so he might have more damning evidence in his phone records than anyone else, and records that aren't as replicated through the other people. Like Trump's records might overlap a lot with his chief of staff. Trump Jr.'s records might not overlap with very many at all. And here's the final thing, why this is absolutely devastating for Trump Jr. He's dumb. He's super dumb, guys. We know this guy has gone on TV, on OAN, Newsmax, Fox News, other sources, and incriminated himself, his family, his dad, his company. Maybe others too, I don't know. But at least all of those. He's gone on TV and admitted that he's basically lied under oath. He's gone on TV and admitted that his corporation and the CFO at the corporation and the corporation that his dad ultimately runs and he ultimately runs has committed tax fraud. But it's no big deal because it's just minor tax fraud. It's just on little fringe things. This guy is absolutely in massive trouble and does not have the brain or temperament to keep himself out of prison. I do think there's a damn good chance that Trump Jr. could be the first Trump to go to prison. Maybe deservedly.